here today. My name is Graeme, and I'm a grade 12 student at Crescent School. Now I'm up here today to talk to you all about a very important issue, something that I feel very strongly about, and that is organ donation. Now I know lots of you might not know a whole lot about it. Some of you might not know what it is at all, but that is why I'm here, because it is an important topic in Canada that I feel strongly about. There is a growing issue in Canada today regarding organ donation, where not enough organs are being donated to treat sick and dying patients. So I had the idea to work with the Trillium Gift of Life Network, an organization that promotes and coordinates organ donation in Toronto, to speak to independent schools in Toronto. So, for those of you who don't know already, organ donation is basically a medical operation when you move an organ from one person to another to replace the damaged one. It is the best treatment to save lives or provide a quality of life when an organ fails. Now, organ transplantation has evolved monumentally from just an experimental process to the treatment of choice for thousands of people. In fact, it is one of the most remarkable success stories in the history of medicine. Now, there are different types of organs that can be donated, including liver, lungs, etc. And I'm going to be going over the two types of organ donation now. So to clarify, there are two types of organ donation, from living donors and deceased donors. Organs that live donors can give include livers and kidneys. These procedures are very safe for both people. So what happens is, every single person is born with 2 kidneys. So if you have a loved one, someone in your family is sick, you can choose to donate to that person and both people will be fine. The liver is even more interesting because the liver has regenerative properties to it. So what happens is you donate a portion of your liver to the patient and both livers will grow back to being full and both will be okay. There's also deceased donors. This second one is going to be what I'm focusing on more in this presentation today. Essentially what it means is you register yourself as an organ donor and choose which of the organs you want to donate. When you die, these organs will be donated to someone who needs them. Now, this all seems easy enough, but there's a growing problem in Canada today regarding organ donation, and that is that there are not enough organs to satisfy the growing needs of patients. Not enough people are registering themselves as an organ donor. There are 1,500 people today in Ontario alone on an ever-growing waiting list for a life-saving organ. Every 3 days, someone in Ontario dies because people do not register to donate. Now, polls and surveys reveal most Canadians lack general knowledge about organ donations, mostly because death is a morbid topic that people don't want to talk about, and that's why our numbers are so low. But for these numbers to change, it is important to get comfortable talking about this subject as a country and as a generation, because we're the ones that can make a difference. Canada consistently has one of the worst donor rates of industrialized countries. Less than 20% of the eligible Ontarians have registered. This is unacceptable. We are a nation that prides itself on its health care. We should be setting a good example for other countries. Instead, we are one of the lowest countries in the world for donating organs. Our numbers should be better than this, but they're not. So by now, you've probably already guessed why I am up here talking about this. At the beginning of grade 10, I was feeling sick. After I still wasn't feeling well after a week, I went to a doctor, who then sent me immediately to a hospital after checking my blood. It turned out that both of my kidneys had failed. As you can imagine, it was a huge shock for my family and I. Because before this happened to me, I knew nothing about organ transplants. I didn't know about any of this. I knew probably less than you guys did now before I started talking to you about this. When I was told that I would need a kidney transplant and I could possibly die, my world was turned upside down. And in the months that followed, I would undergo many various operations and have to be on something called dialysis for a year. What this is I get an operation where they put kind of a tube in my chest and it comes out and it attaches to this machine that basically takes blood out of my body, cleans it in a machine, and puts it back into me. And basically that replaces the kidney's job. I would need to take 20 meds a day I would always be falling behind in school because I would be in the hospital for most of the year. And there was no really end in sight of this that I was on. And while dialysis is a replacement for a kidney, it's not a perfect replacement. So what happens was I was always feeling sick, falling behind in school. I was always feeling drowsy. During my time at Sick Kids Hospital, I met many kids waiting for their organs and saw what an incredible difference it makes to their lives when they get their transplants. I started to get inspired by this, as well as my fight to stay healthy, and decided to prepare a presentation at my school about raising awareness about organ donations and how there are some people, even children, even babies, who need an organ transplant but can't get one. In Sick Kids, there isn't just, the thing about organ donation is people whose organs fail, they're not just elderly people, they could be anyone. They could be babies. From the moment they're born, they need a kidney transplant or a liver transplant or a heart transplant. Can you imagine what that must be like? Can you imagine what that must have been like for the parents of those kids? The speech I gave at Crescent was a huge success. And amazingly enough, that same day, later that night, I got a call from the hospital telling me that organs were available for me and I would be receiving another transplant the next morning. This happened last April. Now, through my journey, there were many complications through it. There was at one point when, about a year ago, I had a kidney transplant that I received, but it didn't work. And what happened was all the doctors and everyone was panicking because my kidney was basically failing all over again. And what they discovered was that the reason that my kidneys had failed in the first place was a problem with my liver. So after already having received a kidney transplant, I was now on the waiting list for another kidney transplant and a liver transplant as well. But the same day I gave my presentation, I got a phone call from Sick Kids telling me that a kidney and a liver they were waiting for me to get the operation next morning. Now, when I got that phone call, a million thoughts rushed into my head. The first thing was, I was scared. I didn't really know what was going to happen. I was told it was going to be a 12-hour operation, and I was going to be unconscious for it. I didn't know if it was going to work or not, because my last operation didn't work. But I did eventually wake up after a 12-hour surgery, and the transplants worked, finally. I started to feel better for the first time in 2 years. I started being able to catch up on my work in school, and overall, I was generally a completely healthy person again. After fully recovering and finally returning to a normal way of life, I continue to work and raise awareness of organ donation, and that is why I am up here today. What started as a small thing at Crescent has turned into me doing presentations at multiple other independent schools in Toronto, including RSGC, Havergal, UCC, in coordination with the Trillium Gift of Life Network and the Kidney Foundation. So hopefully by now I've convinced you how important it is to register yourself as an organ donor. And I'm going to tell you how you do that now. First thing that you have to know is that an organ donor, being an organ donor, is an important decision that you have to make. Many of you will be getting your G1 and G2 driver's licenses soon, and they will ask you this question, and I hope you seriously consider doing it. You can also download and mail a gift of consent form at www.beadonor.com. You can also register online directly at that same website. The information is stored in a Ministry of Health database and made available to your family at the right time to ensure that your donation decision is known and respected. It is also very important for you to talk about this with your family and make sure how you know the individuals in your family feel about organ donation. There's also materials that I have brought to you that you can take with you at the end of this presentation that some of the students here will be handing out as you walk out the door. So like I said before, there are 1,500 people on the waiting list in Ontario alone. Many of them are kids that I've met at Sick Kids Hospital. The many doctors that I have met over the past 2 years and the people at Trillium believe strongly that getting the message out to the younger generation is the absolute best way to improve the donor rate in Ontario and in Canada. Now, I have already spoken to my school, Havergal College, and RSGC. Imagine what we could accomplish if every single one of us took initiative and promoted awareness. This could be as simple as talking to your family or friends about it, asking them what their opinions on the topic are, and letting them know your decision to donate. With this issue, it is really us, the kids, the next generation, that can make a difference with this growing problem in Canada. And I hope that you all choose to. Thank you.
I was thinking about that. I was talking to Graeme, who's also Patrick from the Kidney Foundation here, and I was thinking about this and imagining two phone calls. My father and mother, just like I'm sure every single one of you, your worst nightmare as a parent.